If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone to the special meeting for the Oceanside Housing Commission today. Can we please have a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Williams. Vice Chair Walshaw.
Here.
Commissioner Schott. Commissioner Whip. He had indicated that he might not be able to join, and he would by phone if he could, but at this time I don't note anybody on the phone. Commissioner Keller. That she was planning on calling in. Commissioner Gloss.
Present.
Commissioner Cornett.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
And Commissioner Costa.
Present.
Commissioner Alternate Sheila Lewis. And Vanessa Webster indicated that she would not be attending the meeting.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a quorum? Do we have a quorum?
Commissioner Williams, we do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So at this particular time, I move to approve the minutes of the July 28th regular meeting. I will entertain a motion now to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve minutes.
Okay, so the motion has been properly approved by Commissioner Cornett. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
It has been properly seconded by Commissioner Costa. Okay, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried. Next on our agenda, we have a report from our City Council liaison, Council Member Esther Sanchez. Is she here today to give a report? Okay, we're going to move down. Audience communications. Do we have any audience communications? Due to COVID-19, we don't actually have an audience here present with us today. Public communications, same. And next on the agenda, which are items for discussion and action, we're going to have Ms. Sharon Vitelli to come and talk to us about the revisions that were made to the inclusionary housing ordinance. Welcome, Shannon. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Williams and Commissioners. My name is Shannon Vitale, and I'm a planner with the Planning Division. I'm here tonight to discuss the proposed revisions to the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance. For a little bit of background on the Inclusionary Ordinance, the city's Inclusionary Housing Ordinance requires that residential projects consisting of 3 or more units reserve 10% of the units for low or moderate income households. As an alternative to providing on-site affordable units, a developer may pay an in-lieu fee. The in-lieu fee is adjusted annually and is based on sales price data and affordable housing cost calculations of the preceding calendar year. The fee amount is intended to subsidize the price of a median sales price home in Oceanside to make it affordable for a moderate income household. In 2011, the City Council directed staff to revise the in-lieu fee formula. The formula was revised to calculate in-lieu fees based on square footage instead of per unit and resulted in a reduction of the required in-lieu fee amount. Thus, most developers have opted to pay the in-lieu fee instead of building affordable units on site. On January 22nd, City Council directed staff to prepare amendments to encourage developers to construct affordable units instead of paying the in-lieu fee. Staff suggests the revisions to Chapter 14C occur in 2 phases. The first phase, which is before you tonight, would consist of cleanup items to the ordinance, while the second phase would be a substantive update that requires additional analysis and public outreach. As previously stated, the Phase 1 revisions to the inclusionary housing ordinance would update and add clarifying language to the ordinance. Staff is recommending the following 3 revisions. The first revision would add the definition of net building area. Net building area is defined as the aggregate gross floor area of habitable space in a dwelling unit. It does not include garages, carports, porches, patios, or other areas outside of the habitable space of the unit. The second item would add a provision for the reservation of rental units. This provision was removed from the ordinance in 2011. In response to California case law, this provision is recommended to be added back into the ordinance, thereby applying inclusionary housing requirements to rental housing. The third revision consists of adding language regarding the deferral of in lieu fees. Developers may opt to defer in lieu fee payment in accordance with the city code. Staff is bringing forward the Phase 1 revisions to City Council for their consideration next Wednesday. Additionally, staff is asking for direction to move forward with Phase 2. Phase 2 would consist of a comprehensive review and further analysis of Chapter 14C. Staff anticipates extensive public outreach and plans to have stakeholder meetings with market rate and affordable housing developers, industry organizations, and community members. If given direction, staff recommends hiring a consultant team to complete a new nexus study and potentially revise the methodology used to calculate the in lieu fee formula. In conclusion, staff is recommending that the Housing Commission review and provide comments on the proposed Phase 1 revisions to Chapter 14C of the City Code. This concludes my presentation. I'm available, as is staff from the Housing Division, if you have any further questions.
Thank you so much for your report. Do we have any questions at this time?
I do.
Okay, we're going to go around. Commissioner Costa?
How would you do 10% of 3 units?
Oh, sorry about that. I believe, and Housing can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they would round up if that is the case. So 10% of 3, whatever, I don't have a calculator in front of me, but whatever that unit count is, it would round up.
Are there more than 1 houses in a unit? Are there more than 1 apartments in a unit? Or is a unit 1?
Are apartments considered a unit? Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, you're doing 10% of 3 units. And I don't see how that would allow for a whole apartment, because 10% of 3 is...
I will defer to our housing staff to further explain that calculation.
Commissioner Costa and members of the Housing Commission. So we do get that small of projects, and so there's various ways that a developer could satisfy that. So they could simply pay the fee. They could, there's parts in there where they could potentially purchase a part of another development. There's different ways that they could potentially satisfy that requirement, but very likely for such a small, they're going to just pay the fee.
That's what I...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Walshaw, Vice Chair.
Hello. One of the things that I have proposed and discussed with Mayor Weiss and several of the council members is if there's a way to revise the in lieu fee option to include the possibility of, instead of having them pay the fees or build the units, that they might be allowed to donate a portion of the land, say if it was a big development like North River Farms or like they did at Villa Astoria. If it's a larger development, that they would have the option to donate possibly a portion of that land that could then be used for placing fully constructed manufactured homes on as affordable housing. And if we could form some kind of a nonprofit like San Marcos has done, they have 3 nonprofit parks, then the city would get to count them as affordable housing. The developer wouldn't have to pay to construct them. All they would be responsible for is building the cement pads and the utility hookups, and people could get housing much sooner. Mayor Weiss's comment was he didn't see why not. So I don't know what we need to do to maybe propose that, or whether that's something that would come through our body, or whether that's been discussed with you. But I just wanted to make sure that it was out there so that it might be something we could consider, because we're losing our rent-controlled units at an alarming rate, and we've got, you know, an awful lot of seniors and disabled and blind people and veterans that need homes. So it's just a thought.
Yeah, Commission Chair Williams, that would be something that we would look at as phase 2, the more substantive update. This phase that's before you tonight is more of those cleanup items, adding the definitions into the ordinance, adding that provision for rental units. But phase 2 will be a much more comprehensive review, and we will be evaluating for things such as that,
Okay.
if given direction by City Council.
We'll have
next
the
week.
opportunity to submit such an idea in some more formal way, I suppose.
Yeah,
Okay.
Chair and Commission, assuming City Council gives staff direction at next week's meeting, the phase 2 will be a much more comprehensive process. I'm sure we'll be going back to this body, engaging the public, as well as industry organizations, affordable housing developers, and things like that, to evaluate different options.
Okay, thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. Commissioner Cornett?
Yes, thank you. One, sort of looking at Plan 1 and Phase 1 and Phase 2. Looking at Phase 2, just quickly, I'm seeing the term rental housing all over. I want to make sure that there are provisions, or is there provisions that will prevent short-term rental housing? So, in other words, people will actually be able to rent houses and sign a lease for a specific period of time that's not short, so that we can try to work on alleviate housing problems.
Commissioners, again, phase 2, we haven't identified everything that will be involved in phase 2, but I'm sure that will be something that will be looked at as well.
Okay, thank you. The other thing I'm looking at is the, in Phase 1, the in lieu fee alternative. Do we have any idea the percentage of, not percentage, but of how many developers simply jump on the in lieu as opposed to building lower cost housing?
Commissioners, although I do not have the exact number, I know that most developers do indeed pay into the in lieu fee. I don't know if housing staff may have more numbers on that.
Okay.
Commissioner Cornett and members of the Housing Commission, yes, traditionally the developers have simply paid the fee. We've had a couple of projects via Astoria, which is a 38-unit out by the Mission, actually did build an apartment complex, but that was the first one of any size that has happened. So hopefully, so the direction from council really is to look at how can we incentivize or encourage the developers to actually build the units. That's direction from council in going forward to evaluate the revision of the ordinance.
No, my concern is always gentrification, or not doing what should be done. So just wanted to bring those two things to light, and thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
I have a question.
Commissioner Howell?
Yes. Help me understand the calculation for the in lieu fees per square footage.
Sure. Commissioners, so I believe a copy of the ordinance was provided as attachment to the staff report.
Right. In the back.
And then it's under section 14C6 on the ordinance, in lieu fee alternative.
C6.
It's section 14C.6. I believe it's the third page of the ordinance, the fourth page perhaps.
Gotcha. Right.
So under letter B, it defines how the amount of the in lieu fee is calculated.
Okay, I will review that. I might have another question. And my other question is, at the last meeting, or the meeting before last, I questioned the possibility of having that fee raised.
So, Commissioners, yes, that is definitely something that will be evaluated as Phase 2, assuming we get direction from City Council to move forward.
Okay.
That is something, as Angie mentioned, City Council has directed staff to look into options for incentivizing developers to construct on-site
Exactly.
housing,
Exactly.
which may end up changing the formula for the in lieu fee to increase it, so it's not as, I guess, amenable to the developers.
It's not as
Accommodating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. That
Do
was
we
it.
have any other questions at this time? Okay, so I have a question for you, and I am looking at, because we're going to be voting on this tonight, and so I'm looking at the deferral fees. Can you please give us an example of why a developer would need to request a deferral?
I will defer to housing staff for that item, Chair Williams.
Thank you.
And Megan is also available.
Chair Williams and members of the commission, I think it's a pretty simple answer. They don't have the funding up front, or they want to, defer the fees so that they have enough funding to fund the project. Money is hard to come by, and so that would be the main reason that they would defer the fees.
So it's kind of like giving them a loan, because if we're giving someone a loan, then there should be some interest on that loan so that when they pay us back, we get more money to go into that pot.
Yeah, Megan, if you want to
Elaborate.
take that.
Is the mic on, this one? Okay. New mic system. I was part of developing the deferred fee program and development services, and what happens with this is occasionally, as Angie was saying, that at the time of developing their project and pulling their permits, they have trouble getting the financing up front for all of the fees that are due. The requirement is that it goes through each department that is affected by the fee, and then if we necessitate the payment of that fee for a specific project that's identified before they would come to their certificate of occupancy, then we can deny their request to have their fees deferred. But if the deferral is approved, then they will have to pay it before time of the utility or the utility release or certificate of occupancy. So they cannot take occupancy of their site without having paid the fees. So it's just through the construction period.
Okay. But it's pretty much like a loan that the city is giving to the developer.
Well, we're deferring receiving them, yes.
And so we don't have.
But we're not paying out of our pocket for them
We don't have a
to-
fee or anything attached to that.
Just a processing fee. And we do place a lien on the property.
And Chair Williams, if they do defer the fee, at least on the initial phase, the fee is the amount at the time it's paid. So if the fee has increased, they may be paying more than they would have had they paid a little bit earlier in the process.
Yeah. We have not experienced a lot of these requests. We have had some developers request it with water utilities specifically on their buy-in fees and their hookups, but not so much on full-scale projects.
Okay.
A few from some small developers, but not the larger ones.
Okay. We won't beat the developers up, but we're in the business of making sure that we have affordable housing for individuals
Right.
here in the city of Oceanside. And if there's an opportunity to be able to, the government didn't have any problems tacking fees onto different things that we're doing, then, because if they had to go outside to a bank to be able to get that money, to be able to fund that particular project, if we did not offer that deferral fee, then they would have to pay interest on any money that they receive.
I agree.
I hear what you're saying, yes.
So just food for thought. We're going to vote on this tonight. And so I just wanted to kind of address that. Commissioner Howell?
Not only that, I just feel like the deferral fee, what we have in place right now is really, it's supposed to be a penalty. It's supposed to make it hard for the developer to incentivize them to actually build and not have to pay that fee. And I just feel like based on the way the process is right now, we're allowing gray areas for them to still be able to do what they want to do, and we're not receiving the benefit of them still being, still doing what. We're not receiving the benefit. We're making it very easy for them, because if they don't have the money up front and they can pay it later, as long as they go ahead and pay it, it's okay. We still don't get what we need as far as housing being built. On the back end, right now, we're still charging them a low fee to be penalized for not building the construction. So I'm just a little confused with, this process. So.
Okay, Commissioner Costa?
I'm sorry that I'm not more familiar with the down payment assistant program terms and conditions. I looked up what the middle and low class limit was, and I'm surprised at the amount for the single family homes being $600,000. I didn't really think that would be low income. A person would be able to afford a $600,000 house. How does that work?
Hi, Commissioner Costa. I believe the down payment assistance program is the next item on the agenda.
Okay.
So there'll be a discussion
right.
on that later.
Do we have any other questions at this time?
No, thank you.
Okay. So at this time, I will entertain a motion that the Housing Commission accept the proposed revisions to Chapter 14C of the City Code. I'll entertain a motion right now. Do we have a motion on the floor? Well, you can actually make a motion, and then we can call for discussion, and anything that you want to put in the discussion, if you want to send it back to them to review, we can do that. But an addendum, but we have to get the motion on the floor. So I will accept the motion. Entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept.
It has been properly moved by Commissioner Cornett. So do we have any, do we have a second? Okay, so it has been seconded by Commissioner Walshaw. Now I'm going to call for the question. So do we have any questions right now on this before we take the final vote? Any questions, any addendums that you'd like to see for them to take back, or for them to add to this particular provision here for Phase 1? Commissioner Walshaw?
Yeah, I said it. So.
One of the things, because I had discussed this with our previous mayor at length when we were doing Villa Astoria, and one of the things I learned from asking questions about this stuff is what I asked him, why we didn't get more projects actually built, why they didn't build, weren't as willing to build the units. And he said that if a developer in that particular instance was building units that started in the mid 500s, he said, if you go to them and ask the developer, well, what's an affordable unit? He said, they're going to tell you 350 is affordable. And that is a question that I have, is what is affordable? What do we actually, is there a way to put some kind of something on there so it's not a $600,000 home we're talking about, so that it is an actual affordable unit? And the other thing that I hear a lot from people who are concerned about projects that are being built in their neighborhood is, if I recall correctly, when we did dial back the amount of the in lieu fees, at the same time, I believe, and Angie would probably remember this, we also reduced the limit, the distance limit for who gets the notices. It used to be something like, and this is off the top of my head, it used to be something like anybody within 1,500 feet got notice, and then it was reduced down to like 500 feet. So neighbors that are across the street, or other developments or apartments or condos that are adjacent to it weren't getting notices. And then they didn't find out about these projects till it had been voted on and was in the newspaper. So I hear that often from people, and I don't know if that's something that we can request to be included as this.
Thank you. Now I'm going to call for the question again, because we're going to be voting on a couple different things tonight, and I think that you're right now in the area of the affordable housing plan, which is going to come up next. So I'm calling for the question for us to address from the revisions to the inclusionary housing ordinance. It's On page 2 of your packet, we're looking at revising 1, 2, and 3, which is the definition of net building area, the provision for the reservation of rental units, and the deferral fees. So that's what we're actually, the vote has been called on right now. So we'll get to the affordable housing plan and affordable market purchase pilot program a little bit later on. But for the vote right now is on this. Commissioner Cornett.
Yeah, one addendum that I
Mike?
sort of, oh, I'm sorry. Tell people I never know that my voice doesn't project far, and I know it has to be recorded, though. Because we're talking specifically about Phase 1, I'd like to add an addendum, or I don't know actually how to phrase it, but to make the in lieu of fee less attractive. And, yeah, please.
So commissioners, that is a primary goal of Phase 2, is to evaluate the in lieu fee. And the reason why staff is recommending a two-phased approach is that in order to change the in lieu fee or recommend revisions to it, we do recommend hiring a consultant to conduct that new nexus study, doing outreach in the community. So it was more of a longer effort. We feel like the Phase 1 cleanup items are something that we could have done quicker, and we'd like to get that into the ordinance as soon as possible, if that helps with your...
It does.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it has been properly motioned and second. Do we have any other questions before we call for the vote? Okay, so it has been properly did you raise your hand?
Yes, I have a question. So,
I'm sorry, can you please stand up, Commissioner Sheila?
for what I was hearing from you, so my understanding is you guys are building more things, adding more things into where Oceanside, because I was a resident Oceanside, and I'm gonna use myself as an example, okay? How are you building more projects in Oceanside when you have other projects that need to be finished? That's what I'm just throwing out there. You know, I don't understand. You know, from what I'm seeing is that there's more projects that need to be finished, and we're moving on to newer things. Is this the same? I'm not understanding. Is this the same project that we've been working on for a while, or is this something new that we're adding to the agenda?
So,
What is that part?
so I think what we're doing is we're updating and revising Chapter 14C, the ordinance that we currently already have in places in the packet here. So we're just looking at updating some language to this. We had some language that was put in 2011. They ended up taking the language out. They want to put the language back in. So we're just looking at doing updates.
So what does an equivalent household look like? What does that mean, household? What is affordable for a household person?
So you're on the Part B. I think you guys are ready to get to the affordable housing plan. So we can actually go ahead and take the vote, and we can kind of close out this portion of it, and then we can get to the next portion of it, and we'll have Ms. Megan Crooks come up, and then she'll have the microphone. We'll let Shannon have a seat here. So it has been properly motioned, and it has been second. I'm calling for any other questions. Okay, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any objections? Motion carried. Thank you so much.
Pardon, Chair Williams, who was the second? I'm still getting up to speed on
Okay,
this.
so it was properly motioned by Larry Cornett, and it was seconded by Commissioner Howell.
Howell, okay, thank you.
And so at this time, we're going to have the affordable housing plan by Ms. Megan Crooks from the Neighborhood Housing Services to come and give us an update on that. Thank you so much for your time, Shannon.
Do you have the control for the PC? Oh, here it is. Where's the clerk? Good evening, Honorable Chair Williams and Housing Commissioners. I'm Megan Crooks, Interim Neighborhood Services Director with the Neighborhood Services Department. This evening, I have 2 items to present. This one right now is a housing strategy plan, and what staff's asking this evening is that the Housing Commission provide input to the housing strategy and recommend that requests for proposals be issued for the implementation of the priority areas. Some background. On January 22nd, 2020, City Council provided staff direction to look at the inclusionary housing ordinance, which you just made a decision on that item, as well as look at use of alternative programs with the inclusionary housing fees, inclusive of an affordable housing program, which is our next item as well. So that has spurred some conversation in regard to overall housing programs and services and development projects. Sorry. As well, we've been receiving an uptick of inquiries for affordable housing projects. We've been contacted by affordable housing service providers. We've been contacted by the development community, the market rate development community, as well as affordable. And that's been a big increase since, I would say, about November, December, on the amount of proposals we're receiving, and they're unsolicited proposals, all of which we were not able to just openly start negotiating on those unsolicited proposals. On March 18th, 2020, we had planned for a homeless workshop with the City Council to discuss our homeless issues in the city. That's the same week that the state got shut down for COVID-19, and so we had to postpone that homeless workshop, which we ultimately ended up putting into a memo format to the City Council. But on March 25th, we also received City Council direction to seek, there was an increased concern for need for homeless sheltering, and so we had City Council direction to investigate use of inclusionary housing fees toward the development of an emergency homeless shelter or temporary shelter. And then on May 11th, we processed the homelessness memo to the City Council explaining where we were at with our homelessness efforts, as well as the use of inclusionary fees. And while there may be some level of nexus to using that for acquisition or construction, you still have the need for operating costs on there, and inclusionary fees are not an appropriate use for operating costs. And since then, staff has been working, and as well in that memo, it was informed to the City Council that staff was going to be working on a homelessness strategy. As well as staff started discussing that homelessness strategy, we started broadening that as far as how does our homelessness program that's been added to neighborhood services, how does that expand and affect all other housing programs and services? And so we took a look at this strategy from a more global picture. We had the areas of focus in our review of this was homelessness itself, unsheltered and sheltered, and staff are currently continuing the deep dive in that as the detailed flows and ebbs and flows of how homeless need to be served in our community and how that affects all of the services in the region, as well as Oceanside. And we focused on extremely low-income households, very low-income households, low-income households, and moderate-income households. And we were taking a look at what services are currently being provided, what are the needs of these target communities, and then what are the funding areas and available to each or gaps thereof, and how can we prioritize what we need to spend our funding most on. Do you want me to wait? Pause? Okay. So homelessness. First, we have the point-in-time count. We had a point-in-time count results that demonstrated 408 homeless within the limits of City of Oceanside, and 242 of them were unsheltered. This was actually a drop from the previous year, 2019. And again, the point-in-time count is, it's a very difficult count to do, and we do hope that we capture all of it, but there's also some sense that we feel there are maybe a larger number, but the official numbers that we have to report on are being based on those point-in-time count numbers. Right now, Oceanside is working through a referral system to assist our homeless, and I know you've been getting regular homeless updates from Salvador Rahman, and you also heard from HOT Team last meeting as well. But initially, we have hot contacts out on the street and where we have encampments, and then the hot contacts, multiple contacts occur, but eventually somebody seeks services, and then they get referred on to care coordination, and that care coordination can be anywhere from sobering services. It can be assisting them in applying for their own financial resources, and it can provide them a number of services that they need so that they can be in a place where they then want to start forming a housing plan. And then they're referred to the Housing Authority right now in our program to work with our voucher program. And we work with our social workers that are in our Housing Authority as well as our HOT team to coordinate moving those individuals onto permanent housing solutions. And that seemed to be working right now. We've been placing a lot of homeless and getting them permanently housed, and we have goals that we continue to try to meet each year, and I think that we'll continue with that program, but there's obviously still gaps in what the needed services are for homeless. And then we also need supportive housing. So that can come in the form of affordable developments that provide on-site supportive housing. It can also come in the form of these care coordinated services that don't just stop once somebody's permanently housed, but that we continue them once they're housed to help somebody remain in housing. Issues that we see with homeless are mental health issues, domestic violence issues, addictions, affordability. Some homeless are just living in places that are not meant for human habitation, so in vehicles or camping or rotating from motels. And so it's just the affordability of getting that first and last month's rent. And then we also have split families, so families that are that may have had children removed from the home, and then they're also trying to bring that unification process back. We also have individuals who were split from their families, became homeless, and then we tried to reunify them with those families as well as their solution. Solutions overall for the homeless population that came up through the team are temporary shelters, bridge housing, continued HOT teams, housing authority vouchers, care coordination and social workers, and then permanent supportive housing options. For extremely low-income households, right now what we have are affordable housing units available for these households. However, our affordable housing units oftentimes have wait lists, and they're hard to get into, and sometimes the locations aren't always suitable for somebody. The issues that we're seeing amongst the population of extremely low-income households are that individuals in this category are living in overcrowded home environments. So multiple families are living in one household to help one another. Living in places not meant for human habitation. Again, people might be living in their vehicles, living in their camper or trailer. They're living at campgrounds or in motels, moving around. They're also, and that would be considered temporary housing as well. So living in a motel is not your permanent housing solution. They have shelter, but they're taking care of themselves, and they're doing this on their own, but that's not meant for permanent housing. And then another issue is that there's constant increasing rents, and that's often what's pushing families to go live with other family units, and then you get the overcrowding effect. Solutions to this are, one, prevention and intervention programs, or our rapid rehousing programs, where we try to make sure that we can assist them in getting that first and last month's rent and the down payments so that they can remain in their rental units, but also care coordination. So the services that may be needed in assisting people with applying for resources that are available to them that can help them maintain self-sufficiency. And then senior housing programs, we are finding seniors that may be living independently in a home, but maybe they need care, either in-home care or they need to live in an assisted living care facility, but the cost of that is too high. So that is senior housing that would meet the needs for extremely low-income households would be a solution. Also permanent supportive housing, job training, childcare. So being able to provide those types of support systems where individuals may be able to keep up with some of the rents, but also the affordable housing units need to be increased. The very low-income households, currently what's available are the affordable housing units as well as housing choice vouchers. Again, the housing choice vouchers has a wait list, and individuals or families would need to meet the preferences to be able to acquire one of those. Issues with this is that rents are increasing, and there's the housing choice voucher wait list. The rents increasing also have a direct impact on the housing choice voucher program, because we pay more of the rent, and then we have fewer vouchers to offer. There's also the risk of homelessness. Affordability, disabilities, and split families are issues that are being experienced. And again, the increasing rents, which I guess I doubled that one up, I'm sorry. Solutions for this, again, prevention and intervention programs, making sure we have that rapid rehousing. We're trying to prevent homelessness, so that's a very important program that needs to continue to be funded, and care coordination, which is closely tied to that, but can also go beyond that to assist people with being able to find housing and maintain their housing as well. Other solutions are to increase our vouchers and maybe explore home sharing programs. There are home sharing programs in the county, and that may be a viable option. And then senior communities as well, being able to work with new senior communities that are coming in through developments and making sure that maybe units in those facilities are also reserved for lower income individuals. For low income households, currently available again are affordable housing units, and then housing choice vouchers, of course, limited. And issues that are being seen are the wait list on the housing choice voucher program, increased rents, which again continues to create the demand for housing programs. Home ownership is just out of reach for low-income households, and then childcare and local jobs. Solutions for this, prevention and intervention programs and the care coordination, but also affordable housing options, rent restrictions, and home ownership programs. With moderate income households, right now what's available is they have the market rate rental market and the mid-range housing issues that are seen here as a majority of income is spent on rent. Home ownership is out of reach, and childcare and local jobs and commutes can have an impact on their overall income and their wages. And then solutions to that are home ownership programs and moderate income housing options as well. Recommendation isn't there. I don't know what happened to my slides. The recommendations, I'll bring it back to you, is staff recommends that the Housing Commission provide input to the housing strategy. I apologize. The slides that I have on the screen are not complete because what you have in your handout here, I provide you the priorities and the funding options. So if you don't mind, please looking at these slides that I've handed out. Analysis funding options. We do have funding available for programs, services, and shelters. We have Measure X funds that we do receive to assist in our homeless programs. We also have funding available through the Continuum of Care, which is the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, and we can work with them to get shared funding options regionally. And then there are county grants through the San Diego County. We have what's known as the HEAP grant that we receive, and we use that towards our homeless programs. It assists in funding HOT as well as our social workers, as well as our staffing position that is focused 100% on homelessness. And then there are state funds that may become available. There is legislature that they're working on, as well as federal funds that they're working on as well. So we hope that those still come through. Rental assistance, there is funding there through the Housing Choice Vouchers, as well as tenant-based rental assistance, or known as TBRA, and then rapid rehousing programs. For development, we have inclusionary fees and programs. We have home funds. Bonds are an option, and then PLHA allocations, which is the local housing allocation, the public local housing allocation. And that's an allocation that we will start to receive annually from the state of California. For the priority areas that we came up with, the top priority areas 1 are for homelessness, services, social workers, bridge housing, temporary sheltering, and permanent housing options. And all of those services are needed. In particular, we do not have temporary sheltering, and we have very limited temporary sheltering, I should say, and we have no new permanent housing options outside of the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And then the extremely low income area, we need services, we need rapid rehousing programming to continue, and permanent supportive housing provided. priority areas 2, which in the staff report, I had them listed as high and medium. Very low to low income, increased vouchers and home sharing options, and then 2, low to moderate income area for affordable moderate income housing and home ownership programs. So those would be the priority areas we would explain in the request for proposals. And staff recommends that the Housing Commission provide input to this strategy and recommend that request for proposals be issued for the implementation of the priority areas. And I can answer any questions for you.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Ms. Crooks, question. When you asked for, in the synopsis that you just read out, request for proposals, who are we requesting those proposals to be made to?
Thank you, Chair Williams, Housing Commissioners. The request for proposals would go out to the public. It would go to affordable housing developers. It would go to any housing developers. It would go to it would go to service providers, partners in the region that may provide services as well toward homeless programs or sheltering. So it would be pretty broad. We may have separated RFPs, requests for proposals or RFPs. Some may be more inclusive. And then what we'd like to do is issue those so that we get the proposals from them on how they have their ideas of how these solutions could be met.
Well, I'm asking this question because the Housing Commission is going to make a recommendation, and request for proposals is so broad. It's like, what are we requesting proposals for? Or from whom? On what?
Right.
So it's the wording is so broad when you have it the way it's written. And you just gave a whole laundry list of people. So,
yes, and we could, if council also approves us to move forward with this, then we can come back to the Housing Commission when we're ready to issue the request for proposals and review those at that time, and they'd be in more detail. But at this time, we also want your input on the strategy itself as to what we put forward to the City Council, and then again forward for requests for proposals. And they are broad, but yes, they would be going out to the broader community, and it would be open to anybody to apply to make a proposal. And it would be in the form, again, to be more specific about a request for a proposal, it would be more like a notice of available funding. So we would provide what our current and future funding is available for different types of programs, and they would need to submit proposals on what can be done with those resources. Because ultimately, if we wanted to go out and solicit a specific project, anyone may come in and say, well, that's not sufficient funding to provide these services. And that would then give us the perspective of what needs can be met with the funding sources we have.
okay. So I'm just looking at this because we're going to make a recommendation, and it is so broad, even for the implementation of priority areas. If we're going to make a recommendation, the priority areas probably should be listed because we're going to be making a recommendation. So when you leave it open like that, I'm assuming that you're talking about these priority areas here on this slide. I'm just trying to get the wording together for the recommendation that we're going to need to make. Okay, so thank you so much for your report. It was very thorough. Thank you so much. And we're going to have some questions here for commissioners. We'll start here with Commissioner Cornyn. He has his hand raised.
Yeah, it's so what you're really asking for is to say, go ahead and get proposals. Is what it kind of looks like. I just want to make sure that I understand that, because Chair Williams is absolutely right. We've got a broad list of things, and I don't know whether concentrating our efforts in a specific area is actually going to be more helpful if we're going to be providing direction, because I see a couple of things that actually overlap. I see I don't want to say group housing per se, but shared living spaces for not just homeless, but homeless, extremely low income. So shared living areas, I sort of just want to make sure. So what you're really looking from us is to say, yeah, go ahead and solicit proposals, is what it kind of sounds like.
Commissioner Cornett and Housing Commission, yes, that is part of the request that we are asking for you to recommend that we go ahead and solicit proposals so we can see what services, what proposals may come and available to us here in Oceanside with the funding that we have available. However, also what I'm asking for this evening is your input on these strategies and these priorities. So if you think something should be a higher priority or we should focus on one of these, then I'm looking for that input as well.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate
Yes.
that.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell.
You just looked at me. I have a question, and it piggybacks from the last meeting with Officer Ferry. When he was giving his presentation, I felt like the HOT team and the services, what do you call them? Not Secret Service.
The social workers?
Social worker, there you go, Secret Service. They're doing their part. They're finding qualified clients that need housing and they need services, and then they get to a point where it's time to say approve. That's where their back is up against the wall and they're having a problem. And so I like what you're presenting here, but I'm just going to go back to the fact that how can we fix that? Because he seemed, from that conversation, it seemed like, that presentation, it seemed like we can do all of this stuff here, but when it gets time for it to be funded, I'm not sure what the word is, that there's something always like stopping it from happening. And that's what I got from the presentation. So could you talk about that?
Certainly. Thank you, Commissioner Howell and Housing Commission. That is one of the reasons we want to go forward and ask the service provider community as well as development community to give us proposals on what they can come into Oceanside and provide with the funding available.
Okay.
So that we can select the appropriate programs that we can get put in place and fund them, so that when we get to that point, then that is available.
Okay.
So we are trying to build this, and it's not, I don't see this as a one-time thing. I think, we get it moving, we work on some projects, and then we come back again and we do another RFP process with what's available at that time, whether it's grant funds or new allocations, new inclusionary programs, and offer those and see what proposals come to us then to, again, continue to build on this, to continue to fill the gaps of all of these needs. It's hard to sit here and prioritize these because they're all a priority.
Right.
Everything is needed, and nobody's denying that, but we need to start somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so what we're trying to do is build programs so we don't get to that place where something's roadblocking them.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Well, Commissioner Gloss?
Yeah, well, could you explain to me who or how you define your care coordinators? I don't, what their training is or any of that. I just see it used, the term used in here several times, and
Right.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Care coordination can be handled by a variety of different organizations that we work with. It could come from the Veterans Association, it could come from McAllister Institute, who we just set up a sobering facility for, or it can be CPS, working with them on helping families reunify their children into their families. It can be working with Social Security offices, and it can be working with Vista Community Clinic to come out and provide medical exams or dental exams. It's the sky's the limit when we talk about care coordination. The care coordination is specific to the individual. So that's what HOT's doing, is they're assessing what the individuals need with their social workers, and then they're trying to assist in getting these connections to care coordination, and then continually work with an individual to move them towards these housing options.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Walsh, do you have any other questions, Commissioner Gloss?
No, not this time.
Do you have anything to add, Angie? No.
I'm sorry?
Okay. Two things. One, when the hot team was here last week, I did ask them about what's happening with our mental health services when they are out there and they're encountered somebody that's in a crisis. And one of my questions was about whether there or not there are any residential care facilities for mentally ill people like there used to be. There used to be long-term care things that went away in the 80s, and they answered no, there isn't anything like that. And so I'm concerned that whether or not there's any way to fund some type of residential care for the mentally ill, because a lot of times they're in and out of the emergency room overnight, or they're in and out of jail within 24 hours, and none of that helps somebody that can't remember to take their meds, or their family's not able to care for them and isn't trained in mental health issues. And the second thing I wanted to ask is, when the last time the commissioners were invited on a tour of our senior housing facilities, our apartments and all the senior places, all of the wait lists were closed and not accepting new applications, with the exception of Lil Jackson on College and Lake, and that was a 5-year wait list. So I'm wondering, do we have an update on that? Is that something else that we could look at? Because with the increasing loss of rent-controlled spaces in our senior housing communities and the rising HOA fees in some of our other senior communities, I'm seeing an awful lot of seniors that are being pushed out, and there is no alternative to refer them to. And if they get on the wait list, then they're still looking at, what, 5 to 9 years, something like that?
So can we put that on the agenda for the next meeting to get an update on what's going on with the senior housing facilities here within the city of Oceanside?
Yeah.
Just list all the senior housing and what their wait list is.
Sure.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Commissioner Costa.
There's quite a few things that I noticed that when I was trying to help the homeless obtain housing, it was impossible because there were no more vouchers. They qualified, but there were no vouchers. And there was one woman in particular who did have a voucher, which was going to expire because she couldn't find a rental unit that was within her means. So, increased vouchers, how much? How much money will you have? How many people need it? What can a person reasonably expect to get from a voucher? When are you going to run out? Home sharing options. I can't tell you how many people I tried to help with having home sharing options. But you take somebody who has been homeless, they don't know how to live in an apartment. They don't know how to manage getting to grocery stores, or if they don't have a car, which most of them didn't. And then when they would meet up with somebody that might be acceptable, there would be a disagreement. And so that home sharing didn't work because they didn't want to live together. And so there's innumerable problems with many of these services that we're asked to comment on or give you input on. And it would be helpful if we knew what the parameters were. Because when you say increase vouchers, how much money? The rapid rehousing, well, that's not going to help somebody who basically needs monthly help. Rapid rehousing is first and last. And then that's it. Well, if you have somebody who's been evicted because they can't pay their rent and they've been on the street, they get rapid rehousing, it's not going to do them any good. So that service is limited at best. Permanent supportive housing, how much money are we talking about? How many people can we realistically help? You have 408 homeless, 242 unsheltered. I mean, this isn't just, the topics are great. They really are great. but are they reasonable? Do they work? In order for us to really get into it and give you good input, I think we would need more than the broad category. Do you get what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes, Commissioner Costa and Housing Commission, and I think this again comes back to the original questions posed and we can come back with those requests for proposals so you can review the more detailed requests that we put forward. What we're trying to gather tonight are the high-level priority areas you want us to focus on, the input into that to then formulate those detailed requests for proposals. And again, it's an extremely complex issue, homelessness, as well as affordable housing and housing everybody that needs it. So there isn't one right approach, and that's another reason why we're a little broad, and we want to hear from the service providers. We want to hear from people that are going to be funded to implement the programs on what their ideas on how they can contribute to assisting with resolving these issues. So again, the continued care programs or the coordinated care programs, that's exactly the reason we need those, in particular for homeless or the extremely low income persons, is because they need the assistance to navigate finding housing. They need the assistance in filling out the applications every step of the way. And then even when they become permanently housed, to have somebody giving them a call ahead of, hey, you know, your recertification is going to be coming up. Are you going to need assistance with that and getting it in on time so you don't expire?
Right.
So those are the types of things that we're trying to put together to keep people housed, to maximize the programs that we have. In the grand scheme of things, we don't have a whole lot of funding available.
Right.
So again, it's trying to see what the service providers, what they can come in and do with that available funding. And at that point, then we have proposals. We bring them back again with the proposals and maybe presentations and say, here are the programs that are being proposed. And now you're going to see how they're going to resolve the issues.
Can I add something? I would like to see assurances from the people who are going to provide these services that they do provide the services and they answer the telephone. Because I can't tell you how many times I have called particular agencies, which will remain nameless. They don't answer the phone. When you do get an answer, they'll send it to a representative, and that representative will call you back, and that never happens. And you have a person sitting in front of you who is homeless and maybe in poor health, and sleeping on the sidewalk is not going to make them improve their health. They need help. And you wait for that phone call, and it just never comes. And then I find out, well, they're out of money. They couldn't help you anyway. So we need better communication so that I'm not sitting there waiting for a phone call that can't come because there's no money and giving a person false hope. I think the communication and the truthfulness needs to be checked. And a place for people who are helping the homeless to call and let somebody know this organization is not delivering. I think that's important. Do you agree?
I agree.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Costa. Do we have any other questions at this time? So I actually have a question, Megan. I'll give a little background here. So for those of you who live in, well, everyone has to live in Oceanside, Mission Cove Apartments right off of Mission. Those are affordable housing units, 288 affordable housing units. I actually worked on that particular project. And so a portion of that project is being paid for with the in lieu fee that we get from the developers. So the ultimate goal should be to go from homelessness to being able to get someone into affordable housing, such as Mission Cove. I did see in the report that we have about $6 million right now in lieu fees. And it's disturbing to me, because the ultimate goal is to get them there and some housing, that we're constantly pulling from the pot of in lieu fee. We're going to talk about something that's coming up, and I think it's a great program, but you're asking us to spend $360,000 of the $6 million. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot in the big scheme, but then when we're looking at this information here, it appears that staff, and I'm looking at on the background for the rest of the commissioners, and we'll just start here in the second sentence. A memo was issued to City Council informing them that housing in lieu fees are not restricted from being used towards a shelter for acquisition or construction. And you did mention earlier that the funds could not be used for the ongoing operation. I think, and of course, we're in the Housing Commission, so I'm an advocate for homelessness and affordable housing. I think that if we're going to use in lieu fees to help fund the emergency shelter from here in Oceanside, I think we need to put a cap on it. And so that's the background. I would like to see a cap being put on that. I don't want anyone to look at the pot and say, well, they got $6 million. This is what the project is going to cost, $3.2 million. Let's just take $1 million from in lieu. And now we have $5 million. And then if my math person here is Commissioner Carnett, you take away the $360,000, and then the pot just starts dwindling down. And so I would like for us commissioners to, I don't know if everybody is on board with me, but if you're looking for a report from the commissioners and something that you can take back, I certainly would look at putting a cap on that in lieu fee that you use towards that homeless shelter, emergency shelter here in Oceanside, because it's just that. It's a shelter. People are going to kind of rotate in and out. It's great, but the ultimate goal is to get them permanent housing.
That's right.
Okay, Commissioner Cornett?
One more thing. Barry Goldwater said, $1 million here, $1 million there, and pretty soon you're talking real money. So yeah, trying to grab from that. But there's also something else. And I'm looking at this, and I'm saying an RFP simply for, here are the issues we have, here's how we have categorized them, what can you do to help alleviate this? I mean, that's really what we're talking about, because yeah, all of these are problems. And to try and isolate that we're only going to work on this, or we can only work on that, or we should only instruct you, in that priority, I don't know what agencies are going to be out there that are going to say, you know what, we'd be able to really help you with the extreme low income. We wouldn't be able to do anything with homeless. Or somebody coming to you and saying, we'd be able to do something with homeless, really can't do anything with low income. So my real suggestion is, yeah, rattle every cage we can. And just an RFP. These are the 5 issues that we would like help with. Where do you fit into that? And I mean, I know that it's not directable per se. I think that Commissioner Costa is absolutely right, is that accountability is key. Is that if you're going to do this, I want some accountability written into a contract or written into what their proposal is going to be. But from what I see here, the direction should be, yeah, go rattle every cage you can. I may sound a little silly, but that's what it looks like to me, and that's kind of what my gut is telling me, is that I want to get as much from as many as we can, along with what we have to put in to have the best program possible. But if I don't know what proposals they can kick to me, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other? Well, I want to go back because I like to make that cap $500,000 on the in lieu fee for the emergency shelter, that they would not be able to use more than $500,000 towards that. Because now we're looking at $860,000 of the $6 million that's going to be gone. And we don't know when we're going to get some additional funding, if the state or federal government will give some additional funding. We don't know what type of building projects we have right now that would be able to pay additional monies into the in lieu fee. That's my recommendation. You guys are here, other commissioners are here. If you'd like to see the fee higher to give more towards the emergency shelter, then we can have a discussion about it.
I agree with what you're saying.
You agree? Yeah. Okay, so do we need to make a motion on that? Because it's just in the background history, but since we're talking about the strategy and recommendation.
Did we skip ahead?
Yeah,
Skip ahead?
sorry. Commissioner, or Chair Inez Williams and Commission, I think that you can wrap that into your motion.
Okay.
That if staff, we're seeking input to the housing strategy. And if part of your input to the housing strategy is to cap inclusionary in lieu fees to $500,000 toward the acquisition or development, whatever it may be, of a shelter, whether that's done by the city or solicited in an RFP, that you want that included, then you can wrap that into your motion, and that will all be forwarded on to the city council as well.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
Short question.
Okay, Commissioner, Vice Chair Walsh.
With regard to Commissioner Glass's question about the care providers, do we work in conjunction with San Diego County Aging and Independence Services? Do you know?
Commissioner Walshaw and Housing Commission, yes, we do. As a city, we do a great deal. But how we interact with them directly through housing, Angie, do you want to touch on that?
Yes, Commissioner Walshaw and members of the commission. In the past, we have not traditionally worked with that agency. We work with a lot of other ones, interfaith, mental health systems, and quite a few other agencies that assist persons with disabilities, but not specifically that agency.
Right. I not long ago had very good help from them, and they were able to coordinate for somebody getting them. They worked, I think they put him in touch with you guys, and they were able to get some funds to get him onto Section 8, back onto Section 8, and then they were able to set him up with Meals on Wheels. He's got a caregiver from the county that comes 3 days a week to make sure he's getting his housework and his food isn't expired, and so he's getting his meals delivered now, and then they pick him up and take him to get his mental health meds once a month, and it's working beautifully. And if there's some way we can improve on that and work more with some of these agencies, I'm all for that.
Pardon me, Commissioner Walshaw, I do remember we actually have had someone come out from that agency to provide training to our staff in terms of if there's suspected abuse for elder abuse, and so we have provided training to our staff along those lines, so they're aware of where to direct people to.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions at this time? Thank you so much, Ms. Crooks. So now I will entertain a motion that the staff solicits input. Let me go back and write this again because I'm having to change up your proposal a little bit. Okay, got it. Thank you. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion for city staff to solicit proposals to be issued for the implementation of the priority of the City of Oceanside housing strategy. In addition, a recommendation is being made that a cap on the in lieu fee not to exceed $500,000 be made for the emergency shelter here within the City of Oceanside.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so it has been properly motioned by Commissioner Carnett. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it has been motioned and seconded by Commissioner Howell. I'm calling for the question now. Do we have any other questions? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any objections? Okay, so we have one objection for the record. Do we have any abstentions? Motion carried. Thank you. And so now we're going to go to the next item on our agenda, which we're going to also have another report for the Affordable Market Purchase Pilot Program by Ms. Megan Crooks.
Thank you. Again, this is Megan Crooks with the Neighborhood Services Department. I'm going to present to you an affordable home buyer assistance program. Staff recommends that the Housing Commission recommend the City Council to adopt a resolution authorizing an affordable market home buyer assistance pilot program as an affordable housing program under Oceanside City Code, Chapter 14C, inclusionary housing. A little background, the city does participate in a CalHome first-time home buyer program. Since 1998, 453 loans have been issued. The target market for this program is the 78 to 80% AMI, which is the area median income, which is the low income category area. The program has a cap of $56,000 per loan. And as of recent years, the last 2 to 3 years, we've had a severe reduction in loan applications. It's slowly tapered down, but in the last 2 to 3 years, it's only been 1 or 2 loans that are applied for and issued, if they're issued. I think that there's many that do not get issued. And part of that is because the cap of $56,000 per loan is not sufficient to fill the gap for the target market to what a home price would be in Southern California right now, particularly in Oceanside. So on January 22nd, 2020, again, as I mentioned earlier in my previous presentation, City Council provided direction for staff to look into options and make recommendations of what a viable program would look like. There was a council member generated item with a presentation of a program, example program that would reach a target market up to 115% AMI, which goes up to the low moderate income families, and to cap the loan at 20% of the purchase price, or $120,000. And I did make an error in the staff report. It still said $100,000. It would, of a $600,000 home, that would be $120,000. And there is a need for assistance for the low moderate income families to be able to reach home ownership, and there is a desire for it. I did speak with one of our local brokers, and she confirmed that this is definitely a needed program in Oceanside. Again, we go back to the priorities of how do we want to spend our funding, but this is a need, and that there are many families that are upwards of the 80 to 100% AMI, or approximately $75,000 of a household income, that still can't be competitive in the home purchasing market in Oceanside without a 20% down payment available to them. If they don't have that 20% down payment, which for them is very difficult to have available, then they're not competitive in the market. They may have up to 3% to put down, but they're not competing with the multiple offers that are coming in on these homes. And it would require about 20% to meet that gap. So the program qualifications for the home buyers under the rules and regulations that staff is recommending would be up to 115% AMI, and it would be only open for Oceanside residents of the past 3 years or that have worked for an employer located in Oceanside for the last 3 years. The purchaser must contribute anywhere from 1% to 20% of the purchase price in addition to the loan. They must be a first-time home buyer. They must attend an 8-hour home buyer education course, and the home buyer must occupy the home as a primary residence. Eligible properties under the program would be 1-unit properties. It could be a single-family detached. It could be a condominium, a townhome, or a twin home. The property must be owner-occupied or vacant, so it cannot be moving people renting the unit out of it in order to sell. Only Oceanside properties within the Oceanside city limits are eligible, and the property is subject to city inspection. The underwriting criteria, the city recommends that we work with pre-approved lenders that shall go through the qualification and pre-screening of the applicants to the available market programs. So before we were to implement a program like this, we would then, again, with an RFP, we would seek lenders that want to be part of this program, that have experience in working with the low and moderate income market, and we would pre-approve those lenders, and if somebody was seeking a program like this, then we would refer them to one of those lenders, and they would be familiar with our application process and be able to assist them through all of the pre-screening and pre-qualification process before they start seeking out home purchases. The loan-to-value ratio, and that's including all debt, indebtedness, and everything in their portfolio, shall not exceed 100% of the sales price. The credit history evaluated will be done by the pre-approved lenders as well, and that will be done in accordance with a low and moderate income market of what that credit history should look like. And then they also may apply for mortgage credit certificate if they're eligible, and that would allow for them to qualify for some federal tax relief. For the loan terms, under the staff recommendations, the loan could be up to 20% of the purchase price. The price limits on the homes would be $600,000 for a single-family detached, and right now a reasonable home can be found for approximately $570,000, and $450,000 for condominiums or townhomes or twin homes. And those caps are on there because we have a budget, and we need to make sure that we're doing that. And these are also the reachable purchase prices for the low moderate with this program attached. They also, with the loan, they must maintain an affordable monthly mortgage payment. So if they can't acquire too much loan to where they cannot afford the monthly payments. So that's also taken into consideration when they're doing the pre-qualifications and pre-screening as to how much loan they would qualify for. And then it would be a deferred loan for the term of the loan, and the term of the loan is recommended at 30 years. And then the repayment of the loan must come in. It would be due on the sale of the property. It would be due with a title transfer. It would be due if the residence became non-owner occupied. And it would be due at the maturity date of the loan. Or it would be due if the owner refinanced on the first mortgage. With that, before I close with the recommendation, this did take into consideration some of the terms that were presented at the City Council meeting on January 22nd, but I did confirm that that was the viable market in Oceanside and that it was in need. And I also worked with our current first-time home buyer program to kind of mirror that as well. So both of those options are there, and they're similar in nature. So with that, staff recommends that the Housing Commission recommend City Council to adopt a resolution authorizing an affordable market homebuyer assistance pilot program as an affordable housing program under Oceanside City Code, Chapter 14C, inclusionary housing.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for Ms. Megan? Okay, we'll start here with Commissioner Gloss.
It says here on the analysis that repayment of loans due on sale, transfer, non-occupied, maturity date, or refinancing first mortgages. Who decides if the owner is not occupying the house at the time? And what is the criteria for that? And who makes that decision?
Okay, I just want to be sure I understand your question. You want to know who decides?
Under analysis here.
What?
Who's in charge of this program? Who decides if the owner's not occupying it?
If the owner is not occupying it?
Right, it says repayment of loans due on sale, transfer, non-owner occupied, maturity date, or refinancing a first mortgage.
Right.
So I mean, who's the judge?
That would be under the city. So in the Housing Authority, we have staff that work with the loan programs, and they do monitoring on the programs annually. So if during that monitoring, they were to determine that the residence is now being used as a rental unit and that the homeowner is not occupying it as a primary residence, then that would be our trigger to do something about that.
Pretty ambiguous to me, I think. So you're talking about somebody's life savings going into this, and a staff member that untrained and necessarily in that field could take his home away from him, or force a sale, I'm saying.
Well, they wouldn't be untrained. They would be trained in following our guidelines and following the annual monitoring visits.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay. Just to follow up on that, Megan, is there a certain amount of time for the duration of the loan? I know when you get a VA loan, there's a certain amount of time that you have to stay in that residence before you can move out and rent that residence out to someone else. Is there a certain amount of time, or you're just saying for if they get a 30-year fixed mortgage for 30 years, they can only stay in that property?
Yes, as long as they still have our loan, so they would owe repayment of this city loan if they wanted to turn it into a rental unit. And then at that time, we would be free and clear of having any control over the property. So, they would be able to do what they want, but they would have to basically buy out the second loan in order to, be free and clear of the terms and conditions of that loan.
Okay, that's helpful. Did they help you out some with your question, Marshall? Not necessarily. Okay. Ask the question again. Let's see if we can get it answered before we leave tonight. What are you thinking?
It just seems that the department is taking on too much in a personal way. They are making decisions that are not like in cement. I mean, it can go on an opinion of whoever is a staff member is, instead of not necessarily based on reality or facts.
Well, kind of equated to like the Section 8 program here within the city of Oceanside. If you're on Section 8, to be living in the property, and so they have to go out and do a check to ensure that the person who is getting those Section 8 vouchers are indeed the person that's occupying that residence. And I think what Macon is saying for the loan is that if you go and you borrow the money from the city of Oceanside as a first-time home buyer, then they have the right to be able to come out to check the residence to ensure that the person who signed that name on the loan is the actual person.
No, I understand all of that. I'm afraid you're simplifying it. That's not I'm maybe going a little deeper than that.
Okay.
I do understand the physics of it, but it seems like an awful personal level when you say non-ownership occupied. Who makes that call? I mean, Aunt Martha could be there watching your dog while you're in doing something in the hospital, and they make a call. Well, you didn't answer the door. We want you to sell your house.
Yeah.
Because you're not living there.
Well, I'm going to defer that to Ms. Megan to see how in-depth you guys plan, because this is still in the planning phase.
Yeah,
This is a pilot program. So
It's like a setup to me. Didn't seem like it's reality based.
So we're we're set up to be a pilot program. If it's not working, if they're having some issues like you're possibly predicting in the future, then if we do approve this tonight, then we can go back and not fund it.
I'm not. A lot of times when you get personal like that, people follow the letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law, and that can lead to a tragedy.
Okay.
And on a personal level.
I understand. Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for
Thank you.
Oh.
You go ahead.
For one more clarification, that particular regulation did model the Cal Home first-time home buyer program that we're currently operating. So we included it in this one as well. And I think the intent there is to not offer this program up for somebody who's may turn and try to use it as a rental unit where they're profiting off of it, and that's public dollars that we're using to finance it.
Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first question is, how does a lender become preferred or get on the pre-approved list?
Commissioner Howell and Housing Commission, we will solicit requests for lenders to let us know if they want to participate in that, and then we will look at what their traditional lending practices are and how many loans they're issuing to this target market, and their success in helping them achieve home ownership. So we're really looking for lenders that are going to look for the interests of our low and moderate income home buyers in acquiring home ownership. So we will seek them out. We currently have a preferred lender that works with our Cal Home program, and there are several lenders that also work with, like the San Diego Housing Commission and the City of San Diego on the program too. So we will model what they're doing and kind of use those as best practices.
How will you, actually 3 questions. How will you seek them? How will you go about getting them or getting them on the list or looking for them to get on the list?
We'll send it similar to a request for proposal. It'll be more like a request for qualifications, and send out a few questions for them to submit to us, and then we will look into their answers, speak with them, and then we will create the list from there. But we'll send it out probably through a realty association. We'll send it out to lenders that we're aware of. We will work with, again, I have some ideas of folks we can work with based on the San Diego Housing Commission, but again, we're going to want to target locally in Oceanside as well.
Absolutely. Okay, and my last question is, will the terms of the loan as it relates to the price $600,000 and $600,000 for a single family home, and I forget the other one, it's here somewhere. Will those prices change depending on the market of the housing? Will that criteria adjust?
Commissioner Howell and Housing Commission, I'm glad you asked that question, because that's the reason we want to start out with a pilot program.
Okay.
So we're seeking funding sufficient for up to 3 loans. And we don't know what the market's going to look like 1 year from now. Exactly. We know that it has remained pretty solid from a year ago, but we don't know how it's going to change, and I think we need to reevaluate it as we see that. So, that's one of the reasons the pilot program, regardless of whether it seems successful or it doesn't, we're going to do an evaluation and we're going to come back and we're going to discuss that.
Okay. Well, I'm also a realtor, and I do have lender friends who would love to get on your program. And so I will send you over some brokerages or lender people that can possibly get on your list. So
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cornett.
I was trying. So did I just hear you say that you're looking for 3 loans to make
For the pilot program, yes,
for $360,000?
up to.
That we would be allocating $360,000 up to for this pilot program for 3 families.
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Costa.
I wanted to get to basics. So you have a person, or husband and wife, and their income is $72,000 a year, and they want to buy a house for $600,000. So according to, I'm older, but in my time, you weren't supposed to pay rent or housing costs more than 1/4 of your salary. So that would be something like $1,500 a month. Now, they presumably were able to save up to $120,000 for the down payment, and you're going to give them a loan for $120,000. So I don't know how the mortgage rates, whether it's 3%, I would say would probably be accurate. If you have a 3% mortgage on the rest of that, plus your house taxes and your garbage and water and stuff like that, they can't afford it.
Commissioner?
And wait, one more question to include in that. You're giving them the loan. Are you charging them interest? When do they pay it back when they sell a house? Do they stay clear of any debt for that loan while they're living in the house? Or are they also paying you in addition to whatever money they have to borrow to obtain this $600,000 house?
Commissioner Costa and Housing Commission, we did not include accrual rate on the loan itself, and we can do so if that's the recommendation of the commission. And so I'm working backwards a little here. And for example, on our Cal Home loan, if you pay off the loan early, then you do have interest accrued, but if you wait until the maturity date, then it's, you do not owe, you only owe on the principal, no interest. So there's a variety of ways it can be set up, but we did not include interest bearing loan here. With regard to your other question about their qualification and their affordability of this,
right.
It is designed to make it reachable and affordable, and every applicant is going to look different. So you're taking into consideration all of their indebtedness and their insurance, their
Garbage, utilities.
all of their utilities, all of their bills, all of their debts. You're taking all of that into consideration, and the lender, the pre-approved lender, will be doing that qualification with them. And it's not a loan of $120,000. It's a loan of up to $120,000 to assist them in determining what house purchase price that they can look for, and if they can fill that gap and meet it, then they can move forward with seeking homes in that purchase range. So it's up to $600,000 and it's up to $120,000 for the loan. So they don't have to, they're not all going to be at that price. That's just the caps and the limits. And there are homes available below that price, so
Right.
they can
Yes.
work with that, yeah.
Right.
But again, one of the criteria is that put the whole equation together, their monthly mortgage payment needs to remain in the affordable range, given their income.
But what I'm saying is, if they make $72,000, that they can't, that's the cap of, they can't afford a $600,000 house. They can only afford $1,500 a month. How much are they going to have to borrow? How much mortgage are they going to have after they put their down payment and after they get a loan from you? It would be much more than that.
Yes, I think in the terms, and I'm not an expert on this in this area, which is why we would hire a lender to handle this part of it, but they are eligible to have their monthly mortgage higher than the 1/4 of their salaries, their monthly income. I think that it ranges upwards of 1/3 today, and I believe it was 45% that I found in our Cal Home piece. So
Thank you.
it can be reachable at these rates.
Thank you. Commissioner Lewis.
Yes, all this is fine and dandy, and I don't want to be chasing the wind over and over. But my thing is, like you said, the criteria is very competitive, like you said. Now, for somebody like me to get a low income housing into your program, okay, so first of all, what would my income based on, because this is a new year, 2020. So would the income verification be more adjustable because the year is different? For a low housing, and I'm using myself as an example. So that's my question right there. Because I'm looking at just the background of what your target market is, 70 to 80%.
The target market for the Cal Home program is at 70 to 80%, but for this program, it's anybody from 0 to 115%. So it's a much broader market that can choose to apply for this loan.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. How are you going to get the messaging out to the community that this is going to be available as a pilot program?
That's a very good question, Chair Williams and Housing Commission. If we have approvals and once we have lenders in place and have worked with them with the applications, we will put it on social media. We will put it out through our affordable housing developments where people are currently renting homes and they may be interested in moving into home ownership. We can also work through our Habitat for Humanity resource and see if anybody wants to move out of the affordable units and into a market rate home. Those are some avenues, and of course then we will do broad media. There'll be press release, we'll get news articles out there.
I would just like to have a flyer so that I can put the information out to my select group of individuals. I think all of the housing commissioners here would probably appreciate that. That's a part of our duties to be able to advertise the different programs that are available to the community. So we're going to take a vote on this tonight, and once that's approved, if you can just get a flyer out to us and we can get this information out to the communities, and I guarantee you'll have a lot of people, especially with a realtor here on the panel, you'll have a lot of people that'll be looking to apply for this program here within the city of Oceanside.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we take a vote? Commissioner Howell?
Yeah. What was the reasoning behind not charging interest on the loan?
The reason, looking at the Cal Home model, is that it suggested to charge the interest if the homeowner paid back the second loan sooner than the maturity date, but if it matured, then there would be no interest due. It would be principal only. And I didn't see if most of these are going to go to the maturity date, I wouldn't see a need to put it in there. But again, if that's the recommendation, this is still open for discussion, and staff can take those recommendations and adjust the program accordingly if we should put an interest accruing loan together and have an amortization schedule for that. But most of the time, if it's deferred loan, we're not going to be processing that. Another recommendation that came at the council meeting was to have shared appreciation at the time of the sale or transfer or the repayment of the loan. And that's another option also, if we want to be able to have shared appreciation to contribute back into the fund.
The reason why I asked that question is because, you know, we definitely don't want to leave any money on the table. We understand the program and its benefits and trying to help the community become homeowners, because that's how you create generational wealth. At the same time, you know, who a person is this year, they might be somebody grander in 2 years, and they might pay off the home, and then we're just, you know, they might get a gift. Somebody might die and get a life insurance policy payment. You never know. So, yeah, I absolutely believe that we should include some interest in that.
So my question would be for the interest, because typically, would that go into the general, if we did approve interest on a loan, is that going into the general fund? And the mayor and the council can then, you know, allocate those funds to do whatever they choose? Or if we vote on interest, can we vote on the interest to go into the in lieu fund?
Chair Williams and Commission, I believe that it would definitely go into the in lieu fund. There is in the ordinance a stipulation that all fees will go into an interest-bearing account of its own, and I think if we generated interest on any other through a loan, it would go back into that account as well. And we do the same with any of our other housing program funds. All of our other loans to our developers or through our rehab loans, it does the same.
So I'm not the subject matter expert, so I'm not going to propose the interest, but make your case for interest. Before you do, we have Commissioner Lewis that would like to speak, and then make your case for adding interest. Commissioner Howell.
So that interest, is it something like 2%? Or is it more than 2%?
We're going to vote on that if we decide to do interest at all. So because Commissioner Howell brought up interest, then she has to make your case and tell us what you, because you're a realtor, tell us what the market rate is, what you think the interest rate should be, should we decide to go in that direction.
I think the interest should reflect what the market is, as far as it should mirror what the banks are. If we're kind of acting like a bank, I think we should just mirror, what the banks are doing, and it should be based on what the qualifications are to get pre-approved for the loan. So,
what is the market rate right now for interest?
I mean, you can 3% is like the best, depending on where we're at today or tomorrow, have you? But it just really depends on the applicant's profile once you put everything together. So it's not, what I can say today is what the interest could not be in 10 days, so I think it should reflect the market. It should reflect the market.
Okay, it's up. Anybody else is open for conversation at this time? Anyone else have any thoughts on if we should add interest, if we should not add interest? Commissioner Cornett?
Yeah, can the interest basically be deferred until the sale of the home, and then have that interest be taken as part of the sale of the home? Because the idea is you want to incentivize people in order to be able to use the program, and you're giving them money that they wouldn't have otherwise. So if we accrue the interest, and then the interest comes due upon the sale of the home at the time they sell it. So if they sell it after 10 years, then it's interest from 10 years. And if they sell it in 30 years, it's interest on the maturity date of the loan. So that way, they're not feeling the pinch then, and they're only feeling the pinch when they sell it. And we don't have to make it compound. It could be simple. I mean, we can do those mathematical ideas, but I think that if you're going to collect the interest, you collect it on the sale so that you make this, you make this advantageous. If you don't, it's like any other loan. And, you know, we want to give this some sort of advantage to people who wouldn't be able to get that much money otherwise.
Any other thoughts? Okay, so I'm going to do a motion right now, and I'm going to include the interest in the motion. And I want you to actually say aye, but I want to see your hands too. Everybody's going to have to vote instead of just letting it slide tonight on this particular program. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing an affordable market home buyer assistance policy program with an interest rate not to exceed 3% as an affordable housing program under Oceanside City Code, Chapter 14C, inclusionary housing. I'm entertaining a motion. Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Okay, so it has been properly motioned. Do we have a second? It has been properly motioned by Commissioner Howell and second by Commissioner Gloss. And so now we're going to call for the question. Do we have any other questions or discussion on this? Okay, Commissioner Costa.
What happens if something happens to them and they have to default on the house, if they lose the house? What happens to your loan? Will you have first preference for recovering the loan, or is it like a lien, or what's going to happen?
Commissioner Costa, it would act more like a lien. We would not be the first on the mortgage. We'd be the second. So the first lender is going to probably have that trust default to them, and then we'd have the lien to get our share back.
So there is a chance that you would lose it? Yeah.
There is a
okay.
risk in this, yes.
In that case, with that parameter, wouldn't it make sense to make the highest amount lower? So they would have more of a chance of not defaulting and losing? We did this, what was it, with the housing bubble? People got houses and then they lost them. They seemed like they could get them, but they didn't take into account all that goes into home ownership. And I'm not against doing this. Mm-hmm. But I take care of the budget, so I know that there are variances, things happen. And to me, this spells disaster for the homeowner. You're trying to help them, but I really think it's a disaster. I think the total should be lower.
Are you talking about the interest rate or the total of the loan?
No, I'm talking about the total for the loan. The $600,000. I'm talking about the level, the purchase price, yeah. Not the level of the loan, $120,000. That's fine. The interest rate is fine. I agree with Larry that it should get paid back at the end. I agree.
Would you like to amend my motion? Because you can actually amend my motion and have that 3% paid at the sale of the property.
Sure. I agree with that.
Okay, so we're going to amend my motion.
I have a question.
Okay.
As it relates to lowering the price, she's getting that number from what the market is. So if the market doesn't go down, why are we going down?
There are homes that are less than $600,000.
In Oceanside?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not too many, but there are.
Okay.
Okay. So Commissioner Costa has amended the motion to read for staff to adopt a resolution authorizing an affordable market home buyer assistance policy program not to exceed 3% of interest at the sale of the property as an affordable housing program under Oceanside City Code, Chapter 14C, inclusionary housing. So she has amended my motion. Do we have anybody who would like to? So it has been properly the motion has been properly, I'm losing, amended by Commissioner Costa. Do we have a second on that amendment? Okay, it's been seconded by Commissioner Vice Chair Walshaw. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, it looks like the motion has carried. It was unanimous. Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank
Megan
you.
Crooks. I guess it's getting late in the evening. I'm losing my train of thought. Thanks for your presentation this evening. So we're going to now move on to the next item of the chairperson's report. The only thing that I have to report is that we do have a mayoral candidate forum that's going to take place on Thursday, August the 20th at 6:30 p.m. We already have some individuals who are running for mayor in the city of Oceanside that has consented to be a part of this forum. If you're interested in viewing the forum, it will be via Zoom and Facebook Live. You can send an email to nsdcnaacp@gmail.com. Again, it is nsdcnaacp@gmail.com. And so we have a considerable amount of candidates who has already consented to come aboard and participate in that forum. And we're excited and we're looking forward to seeing what each of them have to say in the direction that they would like to see the city of Oceanside go in. And it also helps us to make an informed decision. As you know, the incumbent mayor is not going to be running again for the seat of mayor, so it's wide open for the city of Oceanside. So if you have an opportunity, send an email so you can get the login link for this forum. And that is all I have to report this evening. Vice Chair, person's report, Vice Chair Walshaw.
Good evening, everybody, again. The only thing I have to report is one of the busiest 2 weeks that I've had in a long time. And it's largely due to the fact that billionaires are coming in and buying up our mobile home parks. And in order to be able to raise the rents from rent control to market rate, if the park owner acquires the unit, then they can rent it out at market rate. So in order to do that, what we're seeing is that anytime someone inherits a home, somebody passes away, or they want to apply to add a family member on to their rental agreement or anything like that, their rent is being refused, and then they're being denied that permission. And what that does is that then sends them to have to scramble to us to get referred to legal help. And legal help can be anywhere from $4.50 an hour to $8.50 an hour, and the park owners know that. And they're kind of at this point getting away with it, but we're seeing an escalation of cases in particular parks. I had 5 new cases in the last 4 days of people that they've rejected their rent. They have family members on the line as to whether or not they're going to be evicted. They've been served with 5-day notices. And this makes it a real crisis for our people. And when we have business owners like this that come into our city and their business plan that is on record is that in their business plan they're saying rent control does not attach to the land, so this is what we're going to do to these people. We're going to ignore the city ordinance and we're going to do what we want to do. And it just seems to me that there has to be new ordinances passed that can prevent those tactics from occurring. Yes, the city can't get involved in civil law, but we can defend our existing ordinances. We have a rent control ordinance. We can post signs, just like a parking ordinance, at the entrance to the parks so that all prospective buyers know that they have the right to rent control if they're moving in there. Because they're currently being told by certain parks, we don't have rent control at this park. Well, that's not true because it applies to the city at large and on our RV parks as well. So there are things that we can do to bridge those loopholes and to close the gaps that they're walking through. And, anything that we can do to get behind our homeowners and the people who have a vested interest in this community. We have over 750 veterans who live in our communities. And they bought the homes that they could afford. They're not on subsidized housing. They're living in a home that they own. And a lot of them, since 1980, pay property taxes as well. So it just seems that there's things that we could be doing better. And I hope that we can find ways to work together, maybe by getting these in lieu fees, you know, and allowing the developers to donate land so we can put manufactured homes on it and transition people out of some of the problem parks and into more stable housing through a nonprofit. San Marcos, I understand from some of the council over there, created some of their nonprofit parks through tax-exempt bonds to assist them in buying the land and getting them established. And they're run as a nonprofit. So I just think that if we come up with some kind of a proposal that we could submit to the council and going forward and work toward getting new ordinances in place that'll stop some of these predatory business tactics. Because it's one thing to encourage new business to come into the city, but it's another thing to allow them to ignore our existing laws and just walk over our residents that already live here. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Satchett, do you have anything to report? Yes, do you have anything to report?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But I do have a question. Can that be incorporated with the loan documents, with the lenders? The mobile home parks?
Do you have your microphone on?
Yeah, no, I don't think so, because the lenders are separate entities, and if you look at the national articles on these things, like for example, Warren Buffett is one of the, if not the foremost owner of mobile home parks in the country, but he also owns the top 10 companies that manufacture the homes and the top 5 that do the loans, and they pretend to compete with each other, but they're all really under the same parent umbrella. So I don't know how in the world you would begin to regulate something like that.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell? Please use your microphone.
Yes, I have a report. Many of you guys might know that I am also a member of the Southern California Rental Housing Association, and the association is a group of landlords, property manager, homeowners, and even though we're in the business of, generating income and making sure we get the maximum profit, with COVID-19 right now, we're working really hard to train our members to not only still go after the bottom number, but also make sure that we're keeping families in their home, because we understand it's tough times and it's COVID-19. So I just want to report on a couple things right now. We are keeping close informed with our landlords as it relates to, hardship payment arrangements with their tenants, but their tenants have to make sure they give proper notice. We also, a lot of landlords on their own have extended the rent payment payback. I just know recently the city of San Diego put it in writing, and that it's going to be December 2020 where the tenants have until then to pay back their rent. But prior to that, voting on that earlier this week, landlords are already doing it based on our best practices and our ongoing training that we have monthly with them. Also, just a little bit on our position with the moratoriums. As an organization, we want to help those who can, but not only owners, be able to provide aid. We need the ability to evict bad actors, bad tenants, people that because right now, we're not able to evict anyone because of the eviction moratoriums. No one's taking evictions. The city of San Diego have shut down evictions, no lockouts, and a lot of property owners or landlords are letting us know that they do have problematic tenants that need to be evicted outside of not paying their rent. They're causing problems, they're becoming a nuisance, and we understand people need housing, but at the same time, we believe based on their behavior that they're not acting like they need housing. And so we need to be able to evict those type of people. We wanted to protect both the property owners and the residents from failure from back pay rents and debt that will ruin their future rents, their futures. This only comes from rental assistance from everyone, which is why we propose and advocate for the city, for cities to come up with better rental assistance programs. As it relates to vouchers, I heard earlier we talk about the Section 8 and rents not being affordable. But as you guys know, January 1st, we passed the rent cap laws where landlords, it was really impacted by single multifamily housing where landlords could only charge up to 5% for rent plus CPI. Well, now there is a new Proposition 21 coming down the pipeline called Renter Affordability Act, where it's going to affect single-family homes as well as condos, so that might help with the voucher program. And you're only going to be able to charge 5%. We're only going to be able to charge 5% plus CPI. And not only that, that proposition also is saying that they're going to put parameters on how much we are able to increase when someone vacates the place. Because let's say that tenant's in there and we've been renewing them and they've been charged the 5% plus CPI. Well, when they move out, we technically still have the right to, if it was $1,500, we could go up to $1,900, just depending on what we want. And so now they're trying to regulate that as well. So that might help as it relates to Section 8 vouchers. So I just wanted to give you an update on the rental housing and what we're trying to do on both sides to assist with housing affordability as well as protect our landlords from not using their assets. So.
Okay, that was for San Diego County?
Kind of a mixture, what I said.
Oceanside.
Oceanside really doesn't, they follow, Angie, you might want to report on that. I think I asked you that last week.
Yeah, okay. Commissioner Cornett? Oh, Angie, did you want to speak? Yeah, because she was giving a report for San Diego, so I'm interested.
Well, I was just reflecting off what San Diego's doing, because Oceanside she'll tell you. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell and members of the commission. Just very briefly, since it's getting late. The State Judicial Council has a prohibition on evictions right now, so that's really what the city does not have a separate eviction moratoria in place right now. It expired May 31st, so as Commissioner Howell mentioned, there are not evictions taking place right now. But I did touch on something. Some of the other cities already have rental assistance programs up and running. We are hoping within the next week to have ours up and running. On the city website, there is information about some rental assistance programs. We do have one up and running right now, and that's in partnership with Community Resource Center. So that's to assist some folks with rental assistance, and just wanted to let you know that we have that available, and we are getting ready to go forward with another rental assistance program that hopefully will benefit some of the residents that you serve.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Cornett?
Nothing, thank you.
You have nothing to report at this time? Commissioner Gloss?
Nothing.
Nothing to report at this time. Commissioner Costa?
No, just, I think it was Mr. Romans who gave the PowerPoint presentation, and I asked that that be distributed to the members of the new homeless group committee.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to set the agenda for the next regular commissioner meeting, which is going to be September 22nd, 2020 at 6:15 p.m. So we're going to join tonight's meeting to our next meeting of September 22nd at 6:15.